This is the UB Football Podcast with Brad Ryder and Scott Wilson.
What's up, UB Bulls Football Podcast? Back at you for another season. There's a game in the books and another one coming up, 11 more coming up, maybe 12, maybe 13. We'll see. I'm Brad Ryder, part of the UB broadcast crew, along with Scott Wilson, a larger part of the UB broadcast crew. Paul Peck's not here, but that's okay. We can handle it. We'll talk without Paul about this football team. He's with us on typically Saturdays, but we get together during the week and tell you what we thought of the previous game and the program in general, and then give you a little sneak peek of what's coming up this week. And that's what we're going to do for the first week here in 2024. The Bulls are 1-0 for the first time in first time in 4 seasons, we'll say. They have won their FCS game. They lost their last 2, so I don't know if you're supposed to say first time in 3 or first time in 4. Either way, a nice win over Lafayette at home to get the season started in Pete Lembo's first game as the head coach. And you, Scott, and Paul, and I breathed a sigh of relief seeing this team finally beat a Patriot League team after running into trouble twice in a row. And then this time you run into the defending champion that's predicted to be the champion again. And they were a good football team. They looked every bit the part of a top-notch FCS team. But for the first time since 3 years ago, the Bulls were good enough to beat that.
Yeah, and the hopefully the long run of unfortunate scheduling where the Bulls ran into here basically 3 years in a row, almost generational teams from Holy Cross, Fordham, and now Lafayette. And this one at least went in their favor. I thought the Bulls were a lot more prepared for this game than they were for some of the other ones. And I thought their overall mentality in the game was a lot better and a lot different, a lot calmer. They played in control. The defense, I thought, was unbelievably good in stopping the run, especially. But, it's a game that you got to have. Murray State has traditionally been a pretty good FCS team. And Missouri ends up with the new staff, 40 new players, 2-win season, Murray State. and the Bulls schedule Lafayette and end up with the team that's their best team since the early 80s. So it was definitely a test. And, all in all, if I had to choose between winning 51-0 like Missouri did or 30-13 and kind of get pressed in some situations, I'm almost okay with the 30-13.
Sure. Yeah, that's better. As long as you're going to lose the game, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the Bulls got challenged and they faced some situations and they faced a really solid team that could pose them some problems in some areas that they've had. Not just this season, but in the past. And they won by 3 scores. So, when you play an FCS team, you want to win by 3 or more scores usually. But more importantly, what we've learned is you got to get the win. And they did that. They looked impressive. And I don't know about you, but I'm happy to see that for the most part, what you, myself, and Paul saw in fall camp kind of showed up, which is, hey, they've done some work here with CJ Agbana, and he looked good throwing the football. And that bodes pretty well for the rest of the season if the defense is going to play like they did.
Yeah, I don't want him out there throwing the ball 45 times, but he winds up throwing it 24 times and had some nice completions on some deep balls. They did great work in setting themselves up for success on those deep balls, but when the moment came, he was able to capitalize on it. And I don't want to compare it to, Army triple option where they're just setting you up all day for the 3 passes they're going to throw. But as far as getting the ball downfield, they're kind of setting you up all day for the 3 or 4 or 5 times that they're going to go downfield, and you need your players to come through in those situations. And I thought Agbana did a really good job of, I'm sure game manager is going to be coming up if he continues to play the way that he did the other day. But that's a perfect spot for him because he's very athletic and he's very smart and he's very likable. But last year, we just saw him run left all the time. When he came in, we knew what was going to happen. Anytime he did throw, it was a sort of panic type of situation for the Bulls. And this week, the way that it went in week 1 was that they had a game plan that allowed for some shots down the field, and the team was ready for them, and he was ready for them, and he made the plays on all but one.
Yep. Yeah, basically 3 for 4.
Yeah, so that's an excellent formula for success. It's a fairly conservative approach in utilizing this quarterback, but I think it's the right way to go. And I don't know, I think Pete Lembo gets it. I think this organization gets it. The program, they know who they are and they know what they're trying to be. And I don't, by any stretch, think that what we saw, because let me finish that. I have a bad habit of starting a sentence and then coming up with the next one and not finishing the first one. Let me fix it. I get the sense that what they did was show us a little bit of what's happening and then kind of pull back so as not to put too much on film yet. You don't need to, you only have to pull out enough to win, right? And once they got themselves established, I don't think things got too crazy. They showed us some of what they can do. They pulled out some stops to make sure they won the game. And once it was well in hand, kind of pulled back a little bit and settled in and said, you know what, we're going to save some of this for, if not Missouri, then certainly for conference play coming up. And I really respect that approach. I think we saw quite a bit of that.
Yeah, I agree. He's CJ. I'm not going to compare him to, some world beater as far as throwing the football. I don't want to make it seem like that. But I guess compared to last year when he, I think unfairly, was treated as if he was a running back exclusively who used to throw passes when he was winning JUCO national championships, but not here. I think that did him no service last year, nor the team. And I'm happy for him that, he was given the keys. He came through. I mean, the Bulls, Cole Snyder, who is now at Eastern Michigan, is a good player. He's a good quarterback. And he did a lot of good things here at UB. But CJ beat a Patriot League team.
Right.
Yeah.
I
mean, there's something to that. I know that, one was on a Hail Mary and one was a missed field goal that you normally make. And, it took these other teams to the death to pull a miracle off against us, but still happened. And there was a big change. And just overall offensively, sticking with what you said, it feels like that they have an identity that fits more of the players that they have instead of just having a random identity and they don't have players that fit that and trying to slam that square peg into the round hole for 12 weeks, which is what happened a lot last year.
Are you talking about running outside with Mike Washington?
I'm talking about a lot of it. I'm talking about not letting CJ throw the ball.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff that happened the last couple of seasons, but specifically last year, that caused that offense to just kind of derail from where Cole Snyder was throwing for 3,000 yards to whatever that was last year. So,
yep.
I think it's one of those things where as the game went on, I felt there were numerous times where in the booth we'd go to commercial, I'd turn around and look at you and Bob Gaughan and say, I get what they're doing.
Yes. Yeah.
And
that's
you
nice.
guys would look back and say, yes. And that was not there a whole lot last year.
No.
There was a lot of turning around saying,
what's going on?
Yeah. Why do we keep doing this when we clearly know that it does not work?
Yeah. So, but I think one of the things I really liked in that game was them sticking with the ground game until it worked. It wasn't, they weren't, defensively, everything was awesome. I loved everything on defense. That was great. On the offensive side of the ball, and I'm sure we'll get to some defense, but offense is really what I'm curious about because I think we kind of expect the defense to be pretty good. offense is like, what is the identity going to be here? And there was a lot of 2 and 3 yard gains running early. LJ Henderson winds up 13 for 43, averaged 2.8. That's exactly what the kind of game it felt like until they really got rolling and they went to Jaquez Barksdale and he was a monster, of course. But they didn't give up on it. They didn't quit on it. This is what we're going to do. All right, this isn't quite working. How do we adjust this and still keep doing it and still create these opportunities to move the ball downfield by being a run-first type of team? They stuck with it. It wasn't horrible. It just wasn't, they weren't gashing them. But they were patient, and they were calm, and they recognized this is going to work eventually. Keep working it. And then they put in the battering ram, and he takes over the game in Barksdale. But all of that, sticking with the plan, modifying it a little bit along the way, but not abandoning it, not dumping it, not saying this isn't working. This isn't working quite as well as we'd like it to, but it's still pretty effective. We're holding on to the ball for quite a while. We're moving the ball. It's not resulting in a ton of points, but we're doing all right. And eventually, the bigger, stronger FBS team looks that way in the second half and pulls away, and they get their win like they're supposed to. So that was very satisfying to me, that they were doing things I understood, and the plan worked. And all of that made me feel very good about this team moving forward, aside from the fact that they're about to play the number 11 team in the country. But big picture for this program, I think, I give a grade of A to Pete Lembo for the impression that he left me with after game one. We'll get to the special teams blunders in a minute, but I get what he's doing, and I like it.
Yeah, and, I don't want to say we told you so, but if you did watch the coverage that we had on the spring game, we told everybody, hey, the defensive tackles that we've got for this year are pretty awesome, and they can roll 4 deep, and the defensive line should be pretty tough. And they took a 1,400-yard rusher and held him to like 12 yards on 14 carries.
That's correct, 12 yards.
I mean, they saw the one thing that Lafayette had to do to win. They have to run between the tackles, and they have an All-American stud to do it. And he couldn't. The one thing that they had to do to be successful on offense was smothered and taken away. And not just like, he averages 150, but we held him to 85. No, it was under a yard a carry. Every time he got the ball, there was a swarm on him, on his legs, and he could never start running. It was domination. I love seeing that. Coach Bowen, the new defensive coordinator, got a game ball after the game, deservedly so. The guys were ready, and they were attacking, and they were all over the field. And you know what? There's a lot of guys on this team that have felt the sting of being upset in the fourth quarter against a Patriot League team. And it was a quick 3-and-out and a shanked punt at the start of that game. And the defense stepped up, and Jalen McNair got an interception on the second or third play of that drive and just kind of pressed reset on the old Nintendo.
Yep.
No, I'm not losing this game. I'm pressing reset, and we're going to be fine. And McNair and the defense came through, made a play, and settled everything back down again, where it could have emotionally kind of been like, oh, here we go again. And they made the play. And they were pretty much like that all game. I mean, when the defense or when the offense was needed to make some tweaks or trying to figure things out or just barely missed a shot, the defense came out and said, hold on, give us a minute. All right, here's the ball back. You can go again.
Yeah.
I mean, the touchdowns had very little to do with the defense and almost everything to do with field position.
Sure.
So
the McNair, that was a drive. I mean, that's just for a team that lost, and I know it's a different administration, different coaching staff, but for a team that lost to the Patriot League teams twice in this game the last 2 seasons, to have your first drive be, it wasn't a 3-and-out. They got a first down, then 3 from there, then they punt.
Okay, yeah.
And then it's start at the 40-yard line. So Patriot League We've lost to them twice in a row. This is the best team they've got in the league again. And they get their first drive to start at your 40. No, it was at their 40. I don't know. It was one of them. I can't tell if I wrote a plus or minus here. Either way. But McNair coming up with the interception on that. And then the Bulls go right down the field. 10 plays, 60 yards, 3 minutes, touchdown. And everything was fine at that. From there on, everything was okay. I mentioned special team blunders. That was not a great punt there. They had a punt blocked, and they had the kickoff that kind of was in no man's land right after you warned us on the radio. You warned everybody on the radio. You didn't tell anybody down there, but I'm sure they knew. Something could be up here, and it was sort of a muffed. Muff is more a term for punts, but same type of thing. Recovery. They still didn't panic. They didn't have the, oh no, here we go again thing. And I think that to me is a good indicator of the difference between this year and last year, because we would see mistakes like that happen and that would be the end of it. I mean, that was the air gets sucked out of the building on a blocked punt. The air gets sucked out of the building on a fumbled kickoff after the team just scored against you. And they rose to the occasion multiple times to overcome the few little difficult moments that they had to navigate. And I thought really showed me something that they really showed me that something has changed. And all of this is just going back to, we didn't like the last coaching staff, and I think I like this one.
Well,
I mean, really.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, and I agree with you. And we said it after the game, when that punt gets, or when that kickoff gets kicked into no man's land and it deflects off a bowl and it gets recovered by Lafayette after they had just scored. I don't know if from that point forward last year's team wins that game. I'm not sure. But to see the composure and confidence that the team had and came out and responded to that with was impressive. It was impressive. You know, it's Coach Lembo is an experienced guy, and you know he's got the resume and the whole deal. It's still his first game with these guys.
Yep.
You know, it's still his first game with a bunch of 18 to 24-year-olds. And for as nutty as that age range can be, and sometimes you just don't know, you know, Texas Tech goes out and has to go to overtime to beat Abilene Christian. You don't know sometimes what's going to happen. He had them prepared. He had them bought in and ready to play and kind of believe in what he's preaching. Now, special teams obviously are going to be addressed this week. That is Coach Lembo's baby. That's what he loves. And he knows a team like UB can't afford to just not have good special teams. You know, the margin isn't as big as, you know, Alabama doesn't have to have perfect special teams because everywhere else is great and they have that margin for error. Well, in the MAC, it's not. You know, all these stats that the MAC is like the most even conference in America, they're true. Every game is a one-possession game. And those margins are so thin and it's field position and it's making a big play. And he knows how important it is to win in this conference and then also pull off some of the games that maybe you shouldn't win. And he's going to get there. We also have to remember last year's special teams, not that good.
Nope.
McNulty could blast the ball, field goals, and they had some success as far as when they had a clean opportunity to punt the ball. Veneri had a nice leg, but I mean, all in all, they were not good. Special teams last year was not good.
Well, the big thing was
he's trying to fix it. All I'm saying is he's trying to fix it, and as much as you practice it, you can't replicate live bullets. You can't replicate somebody else's thought on the other sideline coming up with something that maybe you didn't see or what have you. And there's nothing to replicate that. They're going to get there. For the amount that they are practicing it, believe me, they're going to get there. They just aren't there yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're trying to get there.
But the most frustrating thing on special teams last year, I think, between you, me, and Paul, the thing we would talk about sometimes on the air, always off the air, was fielding punts.
Yes.
And ignoring them and losing 10 yards or 15 yards or 22 yards of field position because you decided not to field the punt and stay away from it. And then it rolls, and then you lose that. And that kept happening. And there was one in this game, I want to say it was Victor Snow fielding a punt, and he had no chance of a return. But he still fielded it like the 12.
Yes.
And that gave the Bulls the ball at the 12, which sucks. But it's a lot better than at the 2, which is where it ended up 11 times last year because of not fielding a punt. And I don't want to call out Ron Cook in particular, but Ron Cook let that ball go so many times, and it drove us crazy. And Victor Snow in game 1 stopped it. What's that?
We don't know what he was being told.
I'm not. That's what I mean. I don't want to single out Ron Cook, but I watched him in particular do that, and you're right. I'm trying to imply coaching again, even though I just said Ron's name. Ron, nothing against you, man. Great career at UB. Love you, buddy. Not talking about you. But you were the guy who was there that didn't field the punts, and then they'd go to the 2, so that's why your name came up. Victor Snow, you fielded it. That's why your name came up. But really, I'm crediting Pete Lembo.
Yeah, and that sequence in particular for, all right, the kickoff was bad, and the punt block is obviously terrible. But there were also good points in the special teams. That play saves 10 yards, and you have some room to operate to behind you instead of just being at the goal line trying to survive. So then the Bulls are able to move the ball a little bit, still have to kick the ball away. So now they're punting from their goal line instead of the back of the end zone. Huge difference. It's a good punt. It switches the fields. The defense comes out, gets a sack, pushes them back even further. They force the punt. They get a nice return and get it up around midfield. And all of a sudden, those 10 yards that changed the play calling 2 series ago has led to you getting the ball back. Not completely, but in a strong way has led you to getting the ball back near midfield, and they got a field goal, I believe, off that drive. And it's like, it's not all because you fielded the ball at the 12, but it's all because you fielded the ball at the 12 instead of letting it roll to your 2. It's such a big difference in field position. It's such a big difference in how you approach those next 3 plays. It's such a big difference in how you protect the kicker from between the back of the end zone to just having a regular punt.
Well, to give you an idea, just to put some numbers on this, UB starts that drive at their 12. They, instead of being trapped, they end up forcing Lafayette to start the next drive at their own 28. And then where does UB start their drive? At their own 47. And that leads to the field goal. Like you said, that was the drive with the Jake Orlando 33-yard catch, the tight end, who made a big play there. One of the plays we were talking about early with the Agbana getting the ball downfield. And then it's a 22-yard field goal to put the Bulls up 16-0, and everything's safe at that point. That was huge. It was a super small thing, but it's the kind of stuff that adds up, that we saw add up to negativity last year. Stop the ball, stop the bleeding. All right, we're at the 12. 12 stinks. But guess what? Now you're at the 28 instead of at our 47 to start your drive or whatever it would be if you had let the thing go. So, yeah, the little stuff. And another positive, I mentioned Victor Snow there. Snow had like a 25-yard punt return that also he got hit out of bounds, and we added 15 to that. And that set them up in a great spot, too. So there were good things about the special teams. We mentioned the negatives just because so much stress on special teams, especially at that scrimmage we went to at night, where it was the whole practice was special team situations. It's in Pete Lembo's blood. He cares about it, and that like he said, I'm not going to sleep tonight because of a couple of little flubs on special teams in a 30-13 win, mind you. All right, let's move forward. Is Missouri better than Lafayette?
little bit, little bit, little bit. Yeah, yeah. Boy, Missouri. Oof. They, they look every bit of a top 10 team. They're coming off of winning the Cotton Bowl, having one of their best seasons in a long time, and they return the quarterback and Brady Cook. They've got the best wide receiver core in the nation, and probably the best wide receiver in Luther Burden III, who is fast, great route running ability. They'll pitch it to him. They'll throw it to him. They'll hand it off to him. Reverses, pitches, everything. They want to get him the ball, and I don't blame him. He's awesome. So they have a really good team. Now, I watched them play Murray State, and I can firmly tell you that there is absolutely nothing that you could learn about their team from that game.
Sure.
It was 28-0 almost immediately, and 35-0 at the half. And when I say this, it's not an exaggeration. Should have been 49-0 at the half. They missed two wide open deep shots where they were walk-in touchdowns. So, it should have been way worse than it was. They called off the Dogs in a big way, especially the second half. And statistically right now, Missouri, with all those weapons on offense, has the nation's number one defense.
Cool.
So they outgained Murray State 500-84 in the last game.
Okay.
Not a lot on the ground, even less in the air. But again, that's Murray State. Those numbers are obviously going to change.
Sure.
This weekend, the Bulls present a lot more problems. And, one thing that I think that you're going to learn, that you could learn, can't really do a lot of east-west on this defense.
Too much speed?
There's just a lot of speed. They've got good defensive tackles as well. And that lets their linebackers really get in and mess with that interior running game. Corners are good. They roll those safeties down. They're not afraid to get physical down in the box as well. And it's going to be tough. But if we saw anything last week, it was, hey, we're going to put together a little something, and we're going to figure out a way to get CJ going and find some easy throws for him, hopefully early on, and that'll get everything moving. I think that not just off of the performance from last game, I just think physically this might be more of a Barksdale game, just because of his size, speed combo. There's going to be so many games this year that Alj and Lamar are just out there causing havoc. But this might be a bit more of a physical game where if you're going to try and run in the trenches there, you're going to need to have a guy that's going to run angry and run violently and have the size to back it up. And Barksdale certainly has that.
Look, we've been to a bunch of these games. We've been to a bunch of these games where, the Bulls are going to make some money here, and they're not expected to win the game. But they're going to go into it trying to win the game. I mean, I saw the itinerary for our trip. It says right on there, beat Mizzou. That's at 7 o'clock. We're supposed to, they are supposed to go out there and beat Missouri. So there's a plan for how to do it. If you're in charge, what's the plan? Are we bleeding clock? When you say it's a physical game, that to me sounds like the clock, as much clock, get rid of the clock. Run that thing as much as you possibly can. Is that part of it for the Bulls here? Because that would be part of it for me. I think
limit
possessions and limit possessions and hope to make a couple big plays in critical situations. That's the move, right? When you're a big underdog.
Right. I think offensively, I think what you would like to do is, hey, if we can set ourselves up at 3rd and 4 or less, every time, we'll take it. Because I think that you can at least open up options there.
Sure.
I think it also should be noted that CJ has played at Missouri before. That's when he was at Southeast Missouri State and had like 70 yards rushing in the game.
Okay.
So he can move a little bit. And we didn't see any of that last week. If you remember, there was really nothing around him. It almost felt like they wanted to have him have his feet firmly planted in the pocket, throw the ball, and show that you can throw the ball.
He carried the ball 5 times for 19 yards. I don't remember any designed plays for him to run. Maybe one.
I think there was an option. I remember one option play.
Okay.
But I just mean, I'm assuming that eventually here they're going to start rolling him out and giving him run pass options, where they're going to say, "Hey, listen, if Orlando dragging across is covered, you can take off.
That's
man.
you, yeah.
You're fast. Don't worry about it. If you don't have to throw it, you don't have to throw it. If you can pick up 12 and slide down, you're good. Go ahead." We didn't really see much of that last week.
Yeah.
So
and properly, I would hide that. I wouldn't use that. You didn't need it last week.
right.
You know, we obviously the dude can run, and it was establishing that he can throw the ball. You know, there are a lot of things in play when you're playing against an FCS team and things go pretty well for you. Some of it is getting stuff right for you. Some of it is making sure you show something on film. I almost did it again where I stopped my sentence. Going back to the Bulls trying for 2 on the first play or the first touchdown of the season. And Paul's thought, like, why? And you said, to give Missouri something else to think about. That's totally right. So everything that we watched last week, you got to think about, they're thinking big picture. It's game 1, and when it's in hand, why would they run Agbana last week? There's no reason to do that. Keep that under wraps, and then go out there and try it this time. There are going to be wrinkles that are involved in this offense from week to week as they progress through the season, and I would think that would be one of them that would, jump to the forefront at Mizzou.
Yeah, and, the Bulls over the last, 6-7 years, really going back once we had to stop playing Art Briles and Baylor, they have all these big step-up games. The Bulls have been there. They haven't won one of them. But come late third quarter, early fourth quarter, there's a great number of them where we have said,
all right.
Anybody else notice that we're down 1 score with the ball? At Minnesota?
Yeah.
Or
Penn
State or Wisconsin.
Right?
They hung around against Maryland. They've been there. Now, most MAC teams get to the fourth quarter, and that's kind of where things start to melt a little bit, just because of depth and something usually happens. I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to happen. I'm not saying the Bulls are going to have the ball down a score in the fourth quarter against a top 10 team from the SEC on the road at night. But I am saying, there's a recipe kind of how we've done this before, and it works, which is set yourself up for third and short and move the sticks. And, 1 first down might not necessarily equal a touchdown. But 1 first down does mean another minute and a half come off the clock, which is a minute and a half that their offense and Luther Burden are not on the field. And that's fun. And, not giving up big plays, keeping everything in front, keeping the umbrella over top. And yes, you might give up some 8-yard runs. And yes, sometimes somebody's going to shake loose. But most of the time, what's going to happen is we're going to force you to also use the clock when you drive. Like, yes, you may score every time you have the ball, but make it be 12 plays. Make you convert some third downs. And what we've seen is that when we've done that in games like Penn State, if you're in the first half and you can throw a couple wrinkles in there, whether it be a stun up front, a blitz from a backer that they haven't seen before, and one of those third downs, you get them off the field, and you force them to punt, and it just kind of snowballs from there, where all of a sudden you're going to halftime at Penn State with the lead, and you're like, wow, okay, this is awesome. Here we go. There is a way to do this. This is a really, really good team. This is a really tough ask, but there is some basis in historical things to lean back on that say, hey, they can hang around. And just like every year, if you can get it to late third quarter and you're within shouting distance, things start to pucker up and things start to get tight, and you got yourself a shot. And that's really all you can ask for. You're going on the road against a top 10 SEC team. Give yourself a shot. And, no mistake, no turnovers, no bad special teams plays. Maybe make a special team play of your own. Force 3 turnovers. Give yourself maybe a couple of short fields where you can get some points. All right, here we go. Like it can be done. There is a way to do it. It's just the margin is so thin, and there's so much stuff that you got to do to thread that needle. But listen, the Bulls' defense, Lafayette's offense is not Missouri, but they are a very good.
No, but they were a shell of what they're
team.
Supposed to be because of what UB was able to do in taking away their primary. The primary option, which is running up the middle.
I will say this: we haven't heard anything yet about Hines or Jaden Oliver, and those are 2 guys that play in the secondary who did not play last week. Specifically, I think Oliver, because of his size, to be able to match up against some of these wide receivers. I hope he can play. I hope he can play for himself. To put that on tape for himself to get a look at the next level against the top competition, but also for the team. I mean, that's the secondary last week looked pretty good, and that was without 2 corners that are going to be in the rotation. Yeah. So I think that could help if they're healthy.
When you sign up to play at Mizzou and you sign a contract for that, and you're Mark Allnut, do you put in a clause like you owe me an extra $350,000 if you make this game at 7 p.m. Why are they doing that to us? Who did that?
See, I
love it for me. I like night games. I think it's going to be fun, but that's an extra challenge.
Yeah, for sure. The way I thought you were going to go is if you're Mark, when you scheduled this and Missouri was 6-6 every year, do not say, listen, if we show up and you guys are top 10, this is ridiculous. You guys owe us an extra $300K.
Right. That too.
Like, this sucks.
That
this
too.
Sucks.
But
I want it right now. I want to know right now. I am scheduling a 500 Music City Bowl SEC team. And if you're in the top 10, I'm going to be pissed.
This Cotton Bowl crap. Money. Yeah.
Right. Not the Cotton Bowl champs over Ohio State. I'm booking a half-filled Liberty Bowl team.
Right.
And they end up with a top 10 team. But,
at night.
At night. But it's going to be fun.
I know it's going to be fun. I can't wait.
Penn State game at night, which was awesome. Which is rare for a MAC team to be able to get the opportunity to play a night game up there in Happy Valley and be able to go down to the SEC. It's, I would assume that place is going to be fairly lubricated.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
For the night game,
yeah,
they will be ready to go.
I have a trivia question for you.
Okay. Chase Daniel.
No.
Oh, okay.
This is U.S. geography.
All right.
So we got the itinerary today, and I looked up, where we're staying in the hotel, and then I wondered how close we are to the center of the contiguous United States. 48 states.
Ooh.
No Alaska, no Hawaii. First of all, two-part question. One would be, in what state is these because Columbia is like dead center between KC and St. Louis.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of pretty well centered, like north to south in Missouri, and then Missouri is pretty well centered in the U.S. So I was like, I wonder how close I'm going to be to the center of the U.S. First off, in what state is the central point of the United States?
Well, I mean, you sold me on Missouri.
I did.
You sold me.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Okay, is it Kansas?
It is Kansas.
Okay.
Lebanon, Kansas is the center.
Of course.
How much time does Google say it would take us to drive? And I don't recommend this. I mean, we're going to have a lot of time to kill on Saturday.
On Saturday.
I don't want to do it. Go there and back just to take a picture at the center of the U.S. But how much time do you think it would take, according to Google, to drive from our hotel in Columbia, Missouri, to Lebanon, Kansas? This is how close we're going to be. This might be the closest you ever are to the center of the U.S.
1 hour and 56 minutes.
Nah, it's like 6 hours, so we're not going to do it. But I still thought it was cool. And I didn't plan on asking you this question, but I thought I'd just throw it at you because it's fun. All right.
Shout out Lebanon.
Yeah. What's up, Lebanon? I asked my wife that same question, and she guessed Kansas right away. I didn't lead her on like I led you on with the Missouri thing, but she guessed Kansas right away. It was pretty good. And then she guessed, I don't even know what city she said, but it started with an L. I was like, yeah, close enough. So I gave it to her. Points.
She guessed Syria, Kansas.
Yeah. Palestine, Kansas. No. All right. Anything else? Oh, you know what? Here. Players that I won't say surprised you, but give me a guy or two from the first week where you went, ooh. Like, for example, Nick McMillan. Ooh, the stuff I thought about him is right. Give me a couple of those from what you saw, the guys you're excited about for the season, and maybe even more excited about than you were prior to the game.
Well, I mean, that was my first initial response.
Well, you can talk about that. I didn't give any details. You can tell that story.
Nick McMillan, he's awesome in the video game.
Right. That helps.
And I was saying last year, McMillan might be our most dangerous player, and then he got hurt right as he was starting to ramp up. He's sweet, man. He is awesome. He is fun to watch, and they did a good job finding ways to get him involved and get him the ball. That's first. Defensively, I think we saw just. I'm glad Dolak's back.
I was just gonna say we have to mention Dolak. That was a whole new version of him, man. Like the new I left and I came back because it's better here and I'm just into it. And obviously he's from here. It's like the Bulls version of the Andreessen story a year early or something.
Right. Yeah. He took the spring off and went to hang with the Utah State Aggies and came back. And at the time he left, I think we all were like, okay, Red is here. Crawford is here.
Yeah. We
love those guys. It's, we wish we had them, but, we don't. And then he came back, and I think that.
Well, and also the team got better a little bit defensively when he went out. Yeah.
He was injured so much last year for so much of the year. It kind of, unfairly to him. He kind of, just kind of moved on. And having him back and, what were there, 4 plays where it was just him and a guy.
Right.
In the open field. And they were just dead.
He did to players what Victor Snow did to that punt.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop it here so it doesn't go way back there.
Yeah, and he was great, and obviously the interception was incredible.
Yes.
But getting to see him, because last year when he was healthy, it was a lot of him and Andreessen. And I think to a certain extent, they were so close in the same type of player that they were both out of position. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like they were both the same guy, and they were both trying to do the same thing, and it just never meshed.
Right. Yeah, that's probably right. And then he gets subtracted out, and Andreessen's game comes up. Yeah.
Right. Andreessen moves over to his spot.
Yeah.
Whereas last year, if it had just been Dolak, he would have looked like that. And if it was just Andreessen, that's how he looked. And he was good and all over the field. And now Dolak is back and he's next to Red and he's where he belongs and he's, making all these plays. And guess what? Red was making a bunch of plays too.
Yeah.
He has 2 stops on 4th down. Lafayette was 1 for 3 on 4th down. And the 2 that didn't work were because Red Murdoch ran through the quarterback's face.
Yep.
and killed him right there on the spot. It wasn't like he hit him and some guy rolled over and got extra. No, it was it. You come in contact with Red Murdoch, the play ends.
Yeah, and
right
one
there.
of those was at the end of the first half, too, that created a situation where, the Bulls could go to the half with a 16-0 lead and just be comfortable and go from there. And that was massive. And then the next one that had happened, I wrote down the word again in capital letters and underlined it because, it was Red ending 4th down for a second time. So, that's another guy we should mention here.
And I just want to throw in Souza.
Yeah.
At defensive tackle.
The March King.
We are familiar with Wallow and
Folsom.
The rest, and Folsom, and even to a certain extent a little bit of Cornell Evans and the rest of the guys. We really hadn't seen anything from Souza. Like, we knew he was a good player. He's coming in from Washington State, well thought of, big kid, physical. Okay. And then in the first half, he just took over the game.
Yeah, it was cool.
Holy crap. This kid looks awesome. He did it against one of the more experienced offensive lines in the FCS. Like, those guys can play. And he just dominated them. So I'm looking forward to, those defensive tackles. If they can keep clogging the middle like that all year, and they just take that away, that's going to be fun to watch because it's really going to put teams in a bind. And because those defensive tackles were playing so well, Red and Dolak had free runs to scrape and go wherever they needed to get those players on the ground. There was never really a guy in their face at the second level because they had to double team the defensive tackles that were killing them. So Souza was fun to see. I don't want to say out of nowhere. We saw him have a great fall camp, but but as far as in a game, out of nowhere, Tristan Souza is fun to watch, and he was owning the interior.
All right, sounds good. Hey, man, I'll see you on the plane. Let's go to Mizzou.
Let's go.
All right, dude. Talk to you soon.
See ya.